What's going on, everyone? Happy New Year. This is Vinny here reporting live. It is 2025. Happy New Year to everyone out there. And it's been quite a year already. We are filming this currently on the eve of January 20th, 2025, which simply means that we will be tomorrow experiencing several major events. There is an inauguration for the new president for second term, Donald Trump, as well as Martin Luther King Day, a federal holiday, as well as for those of you that are in the East Coast, you're probably experiencing quite a heavy amount of snowfall. So it's a perfect time to be able to sit back, get a little bit of hot cocoa, relax, and tune in to the Rod Pod. So what we will be discussing today is pretty straightforward. I wanted to talk with you guys about just some major patterns that I've been noticing in, as a salesperson and as a business owner, and talk about a few guidelines moving forward into this year. In particular this week. Tomorrow will make for a lot of distractions just simply because of the major events going on. Trump is going to be making the headlines and the news all over. So a lot of change is probably going to be happening. A lot of executive orders will probably be signed tomorrow. Not to mention that it is a federal holiday. So for those of you like myself who depend on having an open day, where potentially it is imperative that banks are operating in order for you to successfully close deals, then there might be some interruptions in your flow tomorrow. So how do you kind of stay ahead? Well, the number one thing that I would recommend is, first of all, wake up early. Treat tomorrow. Many of you are probably having a half day, or kind of like we are at our company, testing to see how it's going to be in the morning, depending on the weather conditions, whether it's safe for people to make it in or not. So depending on what your day looks like tomorrow, the number one thing you can do to make sure you prosper this week is wake up early. Okay, treat tomorrow like it's a normal day. Just add a little bit of seasoning to it, and that would be wake up a little bit earlier than you used to, typically 15, 30 minutes earlier than you used to. That just allows you to expect and get ahead of some delays that might be on the way for tomorrow, even all the distractions that are going to be thrown at us tomorrow. So with that said, that would be number one. Wake up super, super early in the morning, guys. The next thing that I would recommend is focus on have some sort of a plan. Now, why would it be so important to have a plan? Quite simply because of this. If you have a plan tomorrow, then you'll be able to, first thing in the morning when you do wake up and you handle your morning routine and you are in the office or at your workplace, the first thing you're able to do is already start tackling all of those tasks in front of you. This has helped me significantly. Typically, I take the weekend to prepare for the first few hours when I wake up in the morning on Monday. That way, I already know exactly what I need to do. Oftentimes, what I found several of my colleagues have done, a mistake that they've made, is they just kind of go with the flow, go with the motions, and just kind of feel out how everything's going to be. And typically, you don't get in. When you operate from that standpoint, here's what tends to happen. Let's say you just kind of take the time to enjoy your weekend, right? You don't really plan. You don't really think through too much about what kind of tasks you need to tackle, how many hours you need to spend on tackling those tasks, and making sure that you achieve certain objectives by the end of the day. Here's what tends to happen. Most often, you wake up, you kind of have a blank slate. Your mind is kind of clear, which is great. You probably feel amazing, right? You have a clean slate. You can just kind of settle in, take your time. But you got to get your cup of coffee. You have to maybe bang your workout, get that out of the way. You have to, start up your car, perhaps, shovel snow, whatever you need to do, first thing in the morning. And you haven't even really done any productive work just yet. You haven't sent out an email, a text message, made that important phone call yet. None of that. Because you're still handling personal stuff. By the time you get to the office, it's already 9:30, 10 o'clock. By that time, goodness, you're rushing through it. The day starts creeping in faster than you think. You're already getting people calling you, calling you, interrupting your flow. And before you're even able to prepare, someone calls you about that email that you sent, asking you questions, and your mind is still so fresh, you didn't even have some time to think through how to handle that situation. So what do you need to do? Oh, give me 1 second. Let me look into that. Maybe you need to make a few phone calls or have a meeting, or you'll get more information before you're able to service your customer appropriately. And next thing you know, you're dragging that task an hour, 2 hours, perhaps all the way through the end of the day in order to give them the solution that they were looking for. When instead, if you actually look through your agenda of items over the weekend, and you had set a plan beforehand, and you said, hey, I need to accomplish these tasks, or I expect that I will have to handle this matter on Monday, then you would have already been way ahead just by simply planning. So these are things, guys, that they might sound basic to certain people, but this is done at a very low and a very, very high level. And at all scales. So very, very important to really tackle your day. This is kind of a bonus activity, or just kind of a bonus strategy, is if you really want to have a productive day and week, start it the week before. In fact, start it a year ahead if you can, right? If you really are an egomaniac, or if you're super maniacal about how you approach your strategy and how you handle your business, it's probably better to really look at things with as early of a foresight as you possibly can. So those are the two. The next task, I would say, is start checking things off, right? So have measurable outcomes that you can actually tackle and check things off. That way, by the end of the day, you're able to retrace your steps and say, what was I able to achieve? A lot of people, what they do in business is, I would say, like Jimmy Neutron. Just blast off. Let's just get in there and let's just run. Let's just experiment and try things. Although that is effective, especially if you set your mind to it and you're intentional about it, and you already know what you need to do in business. You don't need to plan ahead. You already know, you've been doing this for years. Then although that strategy might work and it might produce certain results, how much more powerful would it be if you knew exactly what you were doing? You're a pro and a master at a skill, and that's why your customers keep paying you, and that's why you keep bringing in business. But you add a little sauce to the mix, and that additional mix is you actually know ahead of time what those tasks are. You have written them down, and you're ready to check them off. What that does is now you're able to really make sure that you have something measurable that you can track and you can look back at over the course of a week. If you do this on an Excel spreadsheet or some other, some other tracking system, some other monitoring system that you can organize. Maybe you use one of those, like Slack or, what's the other one? I think it's called Meetup. or something like that. If you use any of those tasks or any of those softwares, Salesforce, for example, any of those, maybe you have your own proprietary system like we do to track your progress and for each deal, then you're going to be way, way ahead, way ahead. So something definitely to consider when you already know what you need to do. Well, all you do is you just kind of organizing and just structuring things slightly better, and you're tracking what you plan to attack. If you plan to attack specific tasks, then you're able to see, okay, at the end of the day, when you review, and this would be the next suggestion, what you're able to view at the end of the day is, hey, I've done all of these items. What kind of results was I able to achieve by handling these items? Okay, item A, B, C, D, E. Okay, they yielded me X result. This is how much I was able to convert. This is how much money I've made from these results. These are the people who were impacted by doing these tasks. And then what you'll find is you can rate them. Did they have massive impact, low impact, no impact? Okay? Or you could do it more from a simple binary standpoint. Favorable, non-favorable. I tend to like to write it as high impact, low impact, no impact. And I attach that each one of those items to a grid, and we'll do this on a whiteboard next time. I'll bust out the whiteboard for all of you. By the way, if you guys like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. All right, we're going to be doing a lot more this year. So, especially those of you who are the most interactive, we'll be doing giveaways. We'll be doing, we'll be bringing people on. We'll be bringing guests onto the podcast. We'll also be, doing live streams, Q&As, where many of you guys may have specific questions and you want to interact live with me. Hop on. We'll be able to tackle, any, kind of tasks together. And obviously, if I'm not able to assist, then I can always point you guys to, a few resources, perhaps some things that have helped me along the way, get answers to questions that I've had. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone who you think that this might resonate with. And obviously, the more likes and comments and subscribe that this actually gets, this will hit the algorithm and more people will be able to benefit from the content in this video. So going back to the content, what I typically like to do is a combination of the two suggestions. For each task that I like to achieve, I like to say, was this productive or non-productive, right? Did this have an effect or no? And then once basically, did this make me money or did it not? Okay. Once I get an answer, a binary answer, yes or no, then I like to establish, did this, if it made me money, how much money did it make? Okay. And then I'm able to see if I accomplished it multiple times that day, how much did I make over that day? Now what I do next is I look at the impact. Was it a high impact, low impact, or no impact? The dollar amount is easier for you to determine what kind of impact. For us, for example, in our industry, if you're in an industry where it's all about how much commissions you bring in, then you're going to look at what's a high commission, what's a reasonable commission, and then zero commission or no impact. So obviously, what that allows you to do is, especially if you do this on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and you look at it over the course of a month, you'll be able to see what activities contributed the most to your commission that was earned, and what was the most productive activity versus the non-productive. That way you can start weeding out the non-productive activities and replacing them with the productive activities. All right, you guys, if you want to be even more, if you want to be a bit more, what's the word I would use? I would say probably more micromanaging, or if you want to be even more obsessed with this activity, you can even attach a time sequence to it. How much time did you spend on these tasks, and what was the yield? How much money did you make from that task? You might find that you spent 10 hours to do something that only made you a little bit of money, versus you was able to figure out a way to do something that spent a little bit of time and made you a lot more money. You might want to figure out, how do you duplicate that activity where you spent a small amount of time and made a lot more money than the opposite, right? So those are some things. I heard this from a mentor a long time ago. He said, you get what you focus on. You get what you focus on. So let 2025 be the year of producing massive results. And I can assure you this, if you simply begin to focus on the results that you want, you will begin to get those results. Why? Because in anything, and of course I'm going to shift a little bit here. Let's think a little bit more broad. Anything that you focus on, the moment you put focus to it, there's an intuitive care, a level of care that you have towards it, right? If you watch your kid, every 5 minutes or every hour, you're probably more inclined to make sure that they're not gonna slip or fall, or you're probably gonna make sure they're not gonna get into any danger, right? Because you're there, you're watching them, you're making sure that they're safe. If you watch and track your calories and how much you're consuming, if you read the back of the label like I do, I'm a little bit wild with that. If you read the labels of everything and you start tracking your calories, you're going to be more conscious of it. And therefore, you're probably going to, over time, build a habit where you're more aware of how much you're consuming naturally. You could start calculating. If I look at a bottle of something and it says 100 calories in it, and I'm drinking that bottle every day, I'm probably already going to know next time I drink that bottle, it's 100 calories, right? So if that's the case, I'm building up sort of that muscle memory, and I'm training myself to start getting a pattern develop. And once that pattern develops, I can expect that pattern. And I know it's either going to give me, again, going back to the binary results, yes or no, on or off, this or that. I'm either going to get bigger or smaller. I'm going to get fatter or skinnier. I'm going to get more muscular or more slender. So based off of my inputs and my outputs. So same thing as with money. If you just kind of go about your day and you just kind of get into a regular routine, you're not fully conscious or aware of the opportunities that are around you. I see people all the time, who, when they're making phone calls, easily they can make 600-700 phone calls, which is insane. Those of you who are in sales, comment below if you've experienced that before. 600 to 700 phone calls. However, they don't speak with one person that whole day. And it makes you wonder, how do you make 600 to 700 phone calls, but you don't speak with one person that whole day? Isn't that wild? Well, it's actually pretty easy to do that. Let's say I'm on my phone and I'm like this the whole time. All day, I'm on my phone and I'm just going like this. Picking up, hanging up, picking up, hanging up. I got music playing in the background. I'm not really paying attention. The calls are going through. People are saying hello, but I could barely hear them, right? Someone says hello. I'm like, yeah. Since I'm kind of zoned out, then I'm not really putting my effort. So the person on the other end of the line barely can hear or sense or feel me. So what happens? They disengage, they hang up the phone, and I lost that opportunity. On the next call, right? I'm just going through the motions, like people say, right? Easily you could do 600, 700 phone calls without engaging with any person that entire day, versus you can be the person who makes 100 phone calls, and they're intentional phone calls. Every single time you connect with the person, you make every attempt to make yourself known, make yourself present, introducing yourself, trying to understand who is that other person on the other line. And I will assure you, just because you're putting your intention into that phone call, you're more likely to connect with more people than the guy or the girl who made 700 phone calls that day, fly by night. Guaranteed. Why? Because it's simple. You get what you focus on. So, moral to the story is, this is the year, and I'll wrap this up today with this simple message. Let 2025 be the year of you getting what you focus on, for better or for worse. And you know what? I would even go as far to say, even the bad things that come up, right? And the bad things, the bad patterns that you see develop, may those be magnified so that you can see it more clearly. It's more visible to you, because the moment you see all the bad patterns and the bad habits, all of those things developing, and it becomes that visible to you, then it's like a truck just running at you. It's easy for you to notice the strength of it, the magnitude of it, and you say, hey, you know what? Let me do something different to change. So even the bad patterns that develop can work in your favor, because they're going to wake you up to what's been wrong and give you the opportunity to recalculate, to adapt, evolve, and change what's not working, so that you can get into the path of doing the right thing that's going to get you on the right path to get you the results that you need. Yes. And as far as the good things, paying attention to the good patterns, getting on what you focus on, the good things that you want to achieve in life, let those be the ultimate guide for success. Because once you start developing those positive results, next thing you know, they start compounding on each other. And that, my friends, creates momentum. And momentum is a beautiful thing to experience. Once you have momentum, it's like a ride. You just stay on the ride and you continue to move on that ride in perpetuity. You just got to know how to keep the momentum going. And we'll talk about how do you keep momentum going in the next video. Now, if you guys have other suggestions on topics that you want to talk about in the podcast, make sure to comment below. I read every single comment. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a lot more in store this year, because as we say, we're going to get what we focus on. And for me, so that I'll be the first to practice what I preach, we will be getting more of what we focus on. So I will be doing a lot more podcasts, because there will be a lot more focus on these podcasts and bringing you guys value every single time. Speaking of value, my partner company, Tip Top Capital, has began a podcast, and I want you guys to go over to the channel and also watch, because we've already done a few episodes. The first episode we did an amazing interview, and it's all about credit. And I know a lot of you guys have questions about, hey, how do you build your credit? Or potentially, if you already have your credit, how do you leverage that in the best way so that you can propel your business to the next level? So we did a whole podcast about that. It's about half an hour. We had some fun. We made a few jokes on the podcast too. It was a good time that we had, and I'm glad that the guest is on. Who was the guest? You have to go to the podcast to find out. So the podcast is called Money Moves. So for those of you who would like to go check out the podcast, it's from my partner, Tip Top Capital. I am the host of that podcast. Go over to that podcast, give it a subscribe as well. Hit that like button as well. Give some comments, show some love, share it with someone who you know is trying to improve their credit scenario. And the podcast is Money Moves. You can go to the Tip Top Capital podcast. and that is where you'll find it. So with that said, I will also link the podcast in the description below. With that said, this is Vinny Rodriguez, 8-Figure Vision here in 2025, tuning out. Until next time.